Sony has been out of the portable game for a bit too long, but with that in mind, let's hop back to their first portable and see if you should still be purchasing one in 2025. Now, the PSP is a fantastic system, and it was a major success for Sony, even though their biggest rival in the portable game kind of outdid them. Now, the PSP went up against what was arguably one of the best Nintendo handheld systems to ever come out in the DS and the DSi and the DS Lite. That whole generation kind of just blew Sony out of the park. But that doesn't mean the PSP was not a success. The PSP was actually a fantastic system and a fantastic success for Sony, considering it was their first foray into the portable space. Now, obviously, we don't have portable systems like the PSP from Sony now. We have the Portal, which is more of a remote player. Although with the recent addition of PlayStation Plus cloud streaming, it does make it a more attractive option, even though in South Africa and most of the world, this feature isn't available yet. Hopefully it does become available so that we do have that playability and usability away from our own systems all over the world, because at the moment it just being in the US kind of makes it, or the US and some other parts of the world makes it not quite as an attractive option for the rest of us. But with that aside and my little rant about the PlayStation Portal out of the way, let's talk about what we're here to talk about, and that is the PSP. The PSP is a fantastic system. Over here we have the 3000 model, which is actually the model that I grew up on. I just didn't grow up on the black one. I had a PSP 3000 Blue Edition. I actually have one, you'll see an overlay shot, but that one's not working and it's not my original one. I made the grave mistake as a youngster to sell my PSP. I don't have very many regrets in my life, and as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this is the only regret I have in my life, and that is selling my blue PSP. I think I've spoken about it on the channel before, and yeah, it is what it is. It's unfortunate. Maybe one day I will find one in box and rekindle those memories. But we are here to speak about the PSP. Now, in 2025, we are very limited with our options for portable PlayStation systems. We are spoiled for choice with portable systems, as it were, because we have things like the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, Nintendo Switch. Now the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out this year. So we are in a bit of a sticky situation where if you are mainly a PlayStation gamer, you kind of only have three choices. You suffer with the Portal's attachment to the PlayStation 5, and I mean suffer very loosely. It is still a fantastic option and maybe one that we'll check out throughout the year, but I'm not sure about it yet. You can get the PSP, which is Sony's first iteration of portable devices, and has it aged that well? We'll get into that in just a bit. Or you could go get a PS Vita, which is a topic for another video. We're not going to hop into that right now. So let's talk about that. It is a portable PlayStation. This is one of the only ways you can still play a portable PlayStation. There is no new way. But what about the games? Are the games still worth playing now, and are there better ways to maybe play these games? And the answer is yes and yes. So there are better ways to play quite a few of these games. If we hop in over here, move the PSP over here, something like Daxter. Daxter is now available on PlayStation Plus. So would you really want to go play it on PSP? That's up to you. Do you want that portable experience where you want to play Daxter, or are you comfortable playing it on the PlayStation 5? I think it's even available on PlayStation 4. I just don't know how well it works. And then you have the ability to change some of your settings. That is one of the nice things about the PlayStation 5 versions of these games. You have very easy accessibility and easy ways of changing the way your layout works. On the PSP, we were unfortunately not blessed with many analog sticks. We only have the one little navigation dimple, as you want to call it. There was no second analog stick. So some games use the face buttons to move around the camera, and with the PlayStation 5 versions of the games, I'm thinking specifically of like first-person shooter type games. I think Killzone Liberation might be the best, or Resistance. One of those two will be the best examples of that. You use the face buttons to move around, and then the shoulder buttons obviously to shoot. However, you can map those face button actions on the PlayStation 5 to the DualSense controller, which obviously is a much more preferable way of playing. But that doesn't tell the whole story. There are games like Daxter, Echo Chrome, Luminous, Patapon, all these games are available on PlayStation Plus, and Sony has done a magnificent job of making them available to everyone. But then there are games that just straight up aren't. Something like this, Star Wars Lethal Alliance. I don't doubt that this might come back. I think this probably has a half decent chance of coming back with the Ubisoft and the LucasArts deals that are going on with Sony and everyone around them. So this could have a chance of coming back, but as the time of recording, this isn't available on PlayStation Plus. So games are still locked on the PSP, but then are they the type of games you want to play? That's the question you're going to have to ask yourself and answer, because these games, while they are great for the time, some of them haven't aged as well. It is a bit clunky. It is difficult to play these games. That's why having them on the PlayStation 5 is making them a lot more playable. But when they are types of games that you really want to play, and say they're in a series that you haven't been able to play anywhere else, now something like these two, the two Metal Gear games, I do think they are available somewhere else. I'm not 100% sure, but they are meant to be played portably. And I mean, Metal Gear Acid, I've played a little bit of it, and I did play it portably, and I think this game suits the portable atmosphere, and I think it is definitely the way you should be playing this game. But should you be playing it on PSP? That is a topic that only you're going to be able to decide. What I can say though, one major benefit to the PSP at the moment of recording and in the current economic climate, these things are cheap. Maybe not the systems themselves, maybe they start getting a little bit more expensive if you're looking for one in box and looking for a very good condition, but collecting and playing games on PSP is really cheap. This is a library that you can fill out really quickly and actually have some fantastic experiences with. Even though some of those experiences are available on more modern systems, I think you can't beat the price. And if you want them portably, say you're commuting a lot and you want to still play these games portably and play them on PSP, obviously this is probably the best way to do it. This is one of the only ways to do it. You can obviously go get digital and probably play them on PS Vita, but not everything is available on Vita. And that is another thing that I want to talk about, because not all these games are available digitally, and the best way to get them is still to pick up a physical copy. And there are some fantastic games on the PSP. The library is so extensive. So having that opportunity to go out and purchase some of these games for really, really affordable prices, and then having a massive library accumulated, the only problem with having a massive PSP library accumulated is you're going to end up with a lot of these guys. And while these aren't the worst thing on the planet, they do take up quite a bit of space. It's not like the PS Vita where you just have the game cards and you can have one of those game card binders and just carry that in your pocket. Those are very portable. These take up a little bit more space than that, and you are going to run into a problem. But I mean, if you're someone that's only going to be playing like 3 or 4 games on a trip, or however you want to play this game, play this system, they're not the worst thing. So I took 3 games with me on my most recent trip, and it didn't take up any space. It barely took up any space in my bag. And I had one of these, I had one of these little guys, and you just open this and you put your games in there, and it worked perfectly. So I had 3 games in there, and that's pretty much all the games that I took with me. I think 3 games is more than enough. You just have a casual game, a more in-depth game, and then something just a little bit light and fun. So for me, I took Metal Gears. I didn't actually get into them, but I have my Gran Turismo on PSP. I love that game. I still play that regularly. It's a bit more arcadey, but I mean, that game is another prime example. That's never coming back. That's staying on PSP for the rest of its life. It is never going to be available on PlayStation Plus or anything like that. But then again, Gran Turismo, once you move on to the next one, you don't really play the others. So those are a little bit more complicated, or got for free on DLCs. Like for Gran Turismo, you got a bunch of cars. I can't transfer all of that over. I have been using the PS3, just doesn't seem to be working for me. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, or if there's just no more use for this. I don't know if anyone does this anymore, so just be aware of that if you are purchasing digital media on your PlayStation 3 or something to transfer it over to VSP. For me, it hasn't been working, so I do recommend doing a lot of your research if this is what you want to be doing. So for now, just stick to physical games, as I advocate most of the time, because the digital ones don't seem to be working, at least for me. But let's get down into the nitty gritty. Let's talk about how it is to actually play the PSP in 2025. And I have to say, while I grew up on the system and it is a phenomenal little system, and it is definitely a system that I recommend if you are a retro collector picking up, in modern times it is not comfortable to play. The PS Vita has spoiled me. The PS Vita is far more comfortable to get into and a far superior system to play when it comes to these. Can you hear that? If we go into the game, that's another thing that might put a lot of people off. The fact that you can always hear the UMD ramping up. It does suck, but it is what it is. But I will say, I did play quite a bit of this in the last few nights and just picked it up and played. It is still okay to play. The Vita is a far superior comfort experience and a far superior experience overall with the quality of games and how it progressed. It is a more modern version of this, but I'm not trying to sell you on the PS Vita. I'm trying to tell you that the PSP is a system that is becoming less and less. I don't want to say this because I love the PSP. I love the PSP and everything that it was in the past for me, but it isn't the system that I would recommend getting now if you are looking for a portable PlayStation. I think you have to start looking towards the Vita, which we will talk about in a future video, PS Vita in 2025, and there are going to be others of these videos. It's going to be all the systems basically, but the PSP is the hardest to recommend currently because it is just not as comfortable to play anymore. It is still a fantastic system, and I think the type of games that you choose to play on it will determine whether or not it is more or less valuable for yourself. So I still think turn-based games, Final Fantasy games, I still want to pick up the Final Fantasy games for PSP. I think those type of games, perfect, chef kiss. Those are going to be phenomenal on this system because you're only using the D-pad and the face buttons. I don't think that any game that makes use of the analog stick, if you can call it that, is the correct way to play this game. I like playing the Mortal Kombat game on here, Mortal Kombat Unchained. That is fine. I think games like that where you just have to use the face buttons, so all these buttons, those are the type of games you want to play, because actually, although this isn't the most comfortable thing to hold like this, the buttons on this, these are some of the best buttons Sony has ever produced and ever put out there. I love the buttons on the PSP. I prefer the buttons on the PSP to the PS Vita. I just prefer the analog sticks on the Vita compared to the PSP. So let me know if there are games that you think make the PSP worth it, or if you have a PSP, or if you're looking to buy a PSP. I don't want to put you off entirely. I think the PSP is a great investment and it has a great library to purchase into. I just think for some of the games, specifically if you're just looking to play like your Daxters and your Ratchet and Clanks, there are superior ways of playing those games. They might not be portably, but yeah, I think the PSP is definitely starting to show its age, and while it is still a fantastic collector's edition or a collector's item, and sometimes you will enjoy playing it depending on the types of games you're going to play. That's, I think, what I want to run home hard here. The games you choose to play are the games that affect your experience with the PSP. While I was the type of person that was playing all the third-person action adventure games, that is where this is starting to fall quite short. So I think when I move into other types of games, I played a bit of Luminous 2. This was fantastic. This is fun. This is a great game to play. If you haven't played Luminous, by the way, I don't know what you're doing. It is available on PlayStation Plus. Play a bit of it. It is quite fun. Those are the types of games that I think you should be looking at with the PSP. Anyways, I have rambled on far too long now, and I think you guys have gotten the idea. The types of games and the availability of the games is what should be your determining choice to figure out if the PSP is worth it or not. So if there are games that are locked on the PSP, 100% worth it. Definitely play it that way. If it's the only way to play your games that you want to play, definitely get it. If not, don't get it. I think that's the easiest way I can put it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will check you on Tuesday for another Top 5 Tuesday, and next week Friday for another Is It Worth It in 2025. Cheers. guys.